أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh and welcome. You are about to see a personal account of Hajj of 1995 and 1998 and a visit to Medina al-Munawwara, the illuminated city. We hope you will enjoy it and that you will gain an insight of Medina, Mecca and the pilgrimage sites. This is Medina al-Munawwara, the illuminated city. In the background is Masjidun Nabawi, also referred to as the Haram of Medina. Our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, died in the city on the 8th of June in the year 632 AD in his 63rd year. Masjidun Nabawi is the second masjid to be built in Medina. Medina usually becomes alive at night during Hajj and Umrah periods. The city is well known for its hospitality and friendliness. All shops and restaurants are open till late. There are a number of guest houses and hotels in Medina that caters for the accommodation needs of the thousands of visitors to the city. Shopping is usually pleasurable in Medina. Medina was known as Yathrib before the Hijrah and is approximately 400 kilometers north of Mecca. This is a bread oven that resembles a pizza oven. Baking bread is a 24-hour job during Hajj and Umrah periods. Pilgrims have the choice of visiting Medina before proceeding to Mecca or after visiting Mecca. Visitors have to eat. This is one of many restaurants in Medina and is managed by Turkish nationals. Families can enjoy meals in privacy. Pilgrims have a choice of visiting Medina before performing Hajj or after Hajj has been completed. Visitors usually wander all over the city at night. Visiting Medina is not part of Hajj, but pilgrims are attracted to the city by the Haram and the Qabr of Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. The center of attraction is indeed Masjid-un Nabawi. The masjid housed the home of Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. The site was originally used for drying dates. Two orphan twins, Suhail and Sahal, owned the land. Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, bought the land from them from funds donated by Sayyidina Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him. Hundreds of thousands of visitors from different countries visit Medina and Mecca every year, and different currencies require servicing. This is a typical money-changing outlet in Medina. There are many historical sites in and around Medina, and visitors usually make a point of visiting these sites. These visitors are prepared and ready and waiting for their guides and transport. The tour can take anything from 2 to 5 hours. This is the wall surrounding the Jannatul Baqi Medina cemetery. It is reported that more than 10,000 Sahaba are buried here, including some of the Prophet's children. The cemetery is still used today as a burial ground. Later, an aerial view of the cemetery will give you some idea of its size. Here visitors are on their way to Masjid al-Jumu'ah. This masjid is also known as Masjid Atika. It is reported that Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, stopped in a valley called Wadi Ranuna and performed the first Jumu'ah Salah there. This occurred immediately after the completion of Masjid al-Quba. This is Masjid al-Quba. It is also known as Masjid Taqwa. It is reported that this was the first masjid built in Medina by Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. It is approximately 5 kilometers from Masjid al-Nabawi. Some of the Sahaba that helped with its construction are buried in front of the masjid. Other popular masajid in the area are Masjid al-Hamada, Masjid al-Bilal, Masjid al-Sajra, built at the Miqat of Bir Ali, Masjid Abu Dhahr and Masjid Ijaba. The Battle of Uhud took place in this area. During this battle, Prophet Muhammad's beloved uncle, Sayyidina Hamza, was martyred. It is reported that Hind, the wife of Abu Sufyan, commissioned an Abyssinian slave, Washfi, to kill Sayyidina Hamza in this battle. In the background is the Qabr of Sayyidina Hamza, may Allah be pleased with him. Generally, tour guides give a brief account of the events surrounding the battle and its significance. Du'as in honor of the martyrs of Islam are usually read here.
عليكم السلام عليكم يا شهداء أحد السلام عليكم.
This is Masjid Qiblatain, known as the Masjid with two Qiblas. In this masjid, Allah directed the Prophet who was in Salah to turn his face from Islam's first Qibla, Jerusalem, to the Kaaba in Makkah. This is Handak, where the Battle of the Trench took place. Muslims met in this battle with the Jews in the 5th year after the Hijrah on this site. A trench of 5 meters wide and 5 meters deep was dug along the exposed perimeter of the city, which made it difficult for the Jewish invaders to enter the city. 7 masajids were built on this site. They are Masjid Fath, Masjid Salman al-Farsi, Masjid Abu Bakr, Masjid Umar, Masjid Ali, Masjid Uthman and Masjid Fatima. Medina has some light industries like this dates processing plant, which is situated on the outskirts of the city. There is a large export market for dates. This is the Jannatul Baqi, and as mentioned earlier is Medina's cemetery. With more than 10,000 Sahaba buried there, it is Islam's most significant cemetery. This aerial view of Masjid al-Nabawi reveals its magnificence. The green dome is directly above the qabr of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. The redevelopment project of the masjid commenced in 1985 AD and 1406 years after the Hijrah. The indoor capacity was increased from 47,000 to 257,000 persons. These figures do not include open areas surrounding the masjid.
But how many eyes are closed to the wonder of this night? Like
These are 2 foreign nationals working in Medina, one from Kashmir and the other from Afghanistan.
but like dreams vanish with the call to prayer, and the dawn extinguishes night.
The Islamic Institute of Medina is a popular tertiary institute where most of the students from South Africa study. Seen here are some of them visiting Sheikh Saadullah Khan, who has stopped over in Medina with a group of pilgrims. It is 1995 and the redevelopment of Masjid al-Nabawi is now in its 10th year and nearing completion. 6 new minarets were added, each 92 meters high, and the existing 4 minarets are 72 meters high, bringing the total to 10. 65 doors were added to the masjid. There are now 81 doors in total. All paving on the outside are heat-dissipating marble slabs. This area is serviced and cleaned daily by the Municipal Maintenance Division.
With closed wings, but like work stops with the call to prayer, and the
Ihram is wajib for Hajj and Umrah and must be donned at or before a miqat. At the miqat of Dhul Khulaifa, also known as Bir Ali, pilgrims enter into Ihram. Masjid al-Shajara was built at the miqat in the early days of Islam. The masjid has been renovated and redeveloped and now has modern and up-to-date ablution facilities. Pilgrims can don ihram in comfort. This miqat is the most physically frequented of all 5 mawaqit outside Makkah, since most pilgrims travel this way by road. The other 4 mawaqit outside Makkah are Thatul Irq, Ya Lamlam, Al-Juhfa and Karnul Manazzil. The 3 Umrah mawaqit in Makkah are Tana'im, Hudaybiyah and Jurana.
himself to immortalize, like his parents before him, in the Garden of Eden. But like the sun sets with the call to prayer, and
Makkah al Al-Mukarrama, also known as the Blessed City, Al-Balad and Bakka is the birthplace of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him. He was born in 569 AD in the year of the elephant. Makkah is Islam's holiest city and is home to Masjidul Haram and the pilgrimage sites. The city dates back to Prophet Ibrahim, may peace and blessings be upon him. The Kaaba at the center of Masjidul Haram, built by Prophet Ibrahim, may peace and blessings be upon him, was the first house built on earth for the worship of one God. Hotel staff are usually very friendly, as demonstrated by Abdul Halim, an Egyptian who is the front desk manager of Al-Qurtaba, one of the closest apartment blocks to the Haram. Makkah is a cosmopolitan Islamic city and is extremely vibrant, especially during Hajj. Most shops are open till late at night. The city accommodates approximately 2 million people during Hajj, and some shop remains open 24 hours a day. The edifice of the Hilton complex imposes itself on the southwestern side of Masjidul Haram. This magnificent complex was completed in 1994. This is one of the many entrances to the Haram. It is known as the Medina Bridge. This entrance faces Abdullah bin Zubayr Street, also known as Shamia Street. It is one of the main entrances and exits to Masjidul Haram. There is always activities around Masjidul Haram. These activities range from street vendors, people leaving the masjid and people entering the masjid. The entire area around the masjid is marble tiled and serves as a prayer area which can accommodate more than 500,000 worshippers. This is the main entrance to the new and recently completed section of Masjidul Haram. More about the new section later. This is Abdullah bin Zubayr Street, more commonly known as Shamia Street, in the Al-Shamia area. The area is popular among South African pilgrims. The road has a slight incline at the start and graduates to a moderate incline and then declines steeply away from the Haram. This is the Al-Nadwa Bridge and one of the 3 entrances to Masjidul Haram's upper level. Tawaf is the circumambulation of the Kaaba in an anti-clockwise direction. A Tawaf session consists of 7 circuits, each one starting and ending at the Hajar al-Aswad on the southeastern corner of the Kaaba. These are the steps that lead down to the wells of Zamzam, males on the right and females on the left. There are 340 chrome taps for males and 110 for females. The Mataf, the open area around the Kaaba, is always filled to capacity during Hajj and Umrah. There are a number of different tawafs that can be performed, such as Tawaf al-Ifada, also known as the Tawaf of the Hajj, Tawaf al-Umrah, Tawaf al-Qudum, Tawaf al-Wida, which is also known as the Farewell Tawaf. The Kaaba itself underwent 13 renovations. The last renovation was completed on the 11th of Shaban 1377 after the Hijrah and 1957 on the Gregorian calendar. The 12th renovation was completed 600 years ago. To the left of the Kaaba and in the middle of the screen are 4 windows. From behind these windows, the Muaddin makes the Adhan. He also has a bird's eye view of what is happening around the Kaaba. A number of policemen are always on hand to assist with various problems that may arise from time to time. Shopping by night is as popular in Mecca as it is in Medina. Pilgrims prefer to shop and walk around at night. Temperatures are usually high during the day, even in winter. The area around the Haram is also not too crowded after Isha Salah. This is the area between the Hilton complex and the Haram and is usually extremely busy. There are numerous upmarket shops in the complex. Further away from the Haram, the streets are not too crowded at night, which makes moving around easier and less stressful. This is part of the ring road system that bypasses the Haram. With more than 2 million people converging on Mecca for Hajj, the general grocers and the butchers are compelled to remain open till late to cater for the needs of the pilgrims. Clothing outlets sell popular Western brand names and are kept busy throughout the Hajj season. Al-Judaria Street is the only covered street in Mecca. The street is also known to Cape Townians as the ever-popular Kifaya Street, so called because mayyats are carried to the Jannatul Mala, Mecca cemetery, via the street when they leave Masjidul Haram after Janaza Salah. It is rumored that the covering of Al-Judaria Street was the same covering that covered the Masa'a, commonly known as Sai Street, before its renovation in 1955. The significance of the renovation of the Masa'a in 1955 is that pilgrims performing Sai could do so without intermingling with informal traders and passers-by for the first time in 1,000 years. As seen here, pilgrims performing Sai are making their turn at the Marwa end of the Masa'a. Masjidul Haram remained in its pre-Islamic state until after the death of the first Khalifa, Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him. The first expansion was made by Umar ibn al-Khattab in the 17th year after the Hijrah. The last expansion was started in 1955 and completed in 1994. Other than renovation, restoration and beautification works, Masjidul Haram underwent no expansions for 1,069 years. The last expansion before the 1995 expansion was in the 306th year after the Hijrah and in 886 AD. A money changer, vulnerable in the marketplace, is indicative of the sense of safety, peace and sanity that prevails in Mecca. Money changers are scattered all over Mecca. Thousands of riyals passes through their hands daily. There are numerous marketplaces like this one all over Mecca. Shops in these marketplaces sell almost everything one can think of. Pilgrims often require small items not thought of when they left home for Mecca. One unique feature of the shops in Mecca is that they only have male shop assistants, even shops that sell apparel for females only. Another noticeable feature is that despite of the multitude buying and buying, the shelves are never empty. Mecca has a history as a trading center even in pre-Islamic days, and these marketplaces are living proof of its ancient trading tradition. Mecca served as a resting place for caravans traveling to and fro from Yemen to Syria. It is well documented that Mecca was renowned for its hospitality. The Medina Bridge entrance and exit is one of the 3 doors that leads directly to the upper level of Masjidul Haram. They are all situated on the northern elevation of the Haram on the Al-Shamia area. As mentioned before, the Medina Bridge is directly opposite Abdullah bin Zubayr Street. Muslims come from all corners of the world to perform Hajj and Umrah. Mecca is a melting pot of different nationalities and cultures. Seen here are thousands of pilgrims milling around to and from Masjidul Haram, socializing and shopping in the city. In the background is the new Sheraton Hotel, an apartment complex which is still under construction and due to be completed in 2001. This is Muhammad Al Sayari, a Saudi Arabian hotel owner in the foyer of Al Qurtaba. Sometimes the roads are quiet in Makkah, even during Hajj. Here is a period of about 3/4 of an hour before the Waqt of Asr. This quiet road turns into a busy road in a flash as pilgrims make their way to Masjidul Haram for Asr Salah. These pilgrims all hope to find a place inside the Haram for Salah. The capacity of the masjid is 500,000 and there is place around the masjid for another 500,000. Shamia Street intersects with Al Umrah Street and runs directly into the Medina Bridge. The intersection is one of the busiest pedestrian intersections in Makkah. During Hajj, there is an ongoing turnover of pilgrims in Masjidul Haram. Because of this turnover, there is a constant movement of people in the streets and in the marketplaces. It is not uncommon to meet old acquaintances in the marketplaces, which make shopping around even more pleasurable. During Hajj, the average daily consumption of Zamzam is about 10 million litres. The water is pumped at a rate of 765,000 litres an hour. The excavation and renovations of the masjid did not affect the Zamzam well. It is noteworthy that since the days of Sayyidatina Hajar, the mother of Prophet Ismail, may peace and blessings be upon him, the water well continued to flow incessantly to be used by pilgrims, visitors and those coming for Umrah. Only in the 223rd and 224th years after the Hijrah did the water of the well recede. After Salah, the flow of people is reversed and again thousands are leaving the Haram in all directions. This is the busy intersection of Shamia and Al Umrah Street and people are seen moving up Abdullah bin Zubayr Street. After Salah, street trade is at its busiest with vendors selling a variety of goods. Some of these traders are pilgrims as well. It is also noteworthy that the Al-Shamia area was the least affected area during the restoration and expansion of Masjidul Haram. Here is a period shortly before Isha Salah. This amount of people outside is indicative of how full it is inside the masjid. The Hilton complex houses a number of upmarket shops. The atmosphere inside the complex is different to the hustle and bustle of the common marketplaces. The area on the eastern elevation of the Masa'a or side street is in shade for most part of the morning. The area is also much quieter than other parts of the Haram. About 2 weeks before Yawmul Tarwiyah, the Haram remains in a constant houseful state. This is a period about 1.5 hours before Maghrib Salah. On the northern elevation of the Kaaba and in the foreground is a semicircular structure known as Hijr al-Ismail. These are the steps leading to the wells of Zamzam. This is a family from Brunei. It is quite easy to make new friends and acquaintances during Hajj. Makkah is renowned for its gold and jewelry outlets. Gold jewelry is a popular adornment amongst Eastern cultures. The first decade of the 15th Hijri century witnessed a steep rise in the numbers of pilgrims and visitors to Makkah. This necessitated an expansion of service projects to serve the city's population of more than 600,000 and help the pilgrims and visitors to perform their rituals with ease and comfort. Here is a mayat being carried for Janazah Salah to Masjidul Haram. This is the eastern elevation of the Masa'a, and looking into one of the doors of the Masa'a, one can see pilgrims performing sa'i towards Marwa. Makkah is a city in the desert, but it also experiences rainfall from time to time. Here the rain has stopped and the roads are still wet, but this water will dry up in a matter of an hour. The Iqamah for Salah al-Fajr is in process and we are facing the eastern elevation of the Kaaba. This is 13 days before Arafah and the Haram is filled to capacity. You will notice that the Hijr is empty since Fard Salah is prohibited in it. This diagram roughly indicates the cardinal points of direction. This diagram illustrates the position of the Hijr on the northern elevation and Hajar al-Aswad on the southeastern corner of the Kaaba. Allah says in the Holy Quran in chapter 22 verse 26, "And when we prepared for Ibrahim the place for the house, saying, Make nothing as my partner and purify my house for those who walk around it and those who stand, bow and make prostration before it." In order to make a specific starting point for circling the Kaaba, Prophet Ibrahim placed a special stone in the southeastern corner. The Kaaba withstood the 929 AD invasion of Makkah by an army of fanatical Shiites belonging to a deviant sect known as the Qaramita. The army killed the pilgrims and carried away the Hajar al-Aswad to the region of Al-Ahsa on the northeastern coast of Arabia. Al-Ahsa became the capital and the Hajar al-Aswad remained there for 20 years until the powerful Fatimid rulers of Egypt, who were of the same sect, ordered the Qaramita to return the Hajar al-Aswad, and so they did. The Kaaba remained as it was until the 17th century AD. Seasonal flooding continued to present a danger to the building, and a copper band was placed around the building to prevent its imminent collapse. In 1630 AD, the northern hall, however, collapsed as a result of a major flood. Sultan Murad ordered that the Kaaba be demolished and rebuilt using the original stones and maintaining the Qurayshi design. The door of the Kaaba, also known in Arabic as Al-Multazam, is made up of two doors, an internal one and an external one. In 1977 AD, King Khalid ordered a new door to be made according to advanced specifications to replace the old one, which was installed in 1943 AD. A special workshop was established under a chief goldsmith and a number of skilled technicians. The final plans focused on achieving harmony between the Kaaba's curtain and the door. The designs also approved the calligraphy known as the Al-Thuluth of verses of the Holy Quran and other words, as well as the engraving and inscription of the decoration works in gold with a small percentage of silver. The internal door, known as Al-Tawbah, has the same decorations as the external one. A new lock was made for the Kaaba as the old one was more than 70 years old. The new door was cast in 999.9 karat gold, weighing 280 kilograms at a cost of 13.42 million Saudi riyals. This is the Ajiyat castle and formerly the palace of the Ottoman ruler of Makkah. It was used as a prison after the conquest of Saudi Arabia by King Saud. Viewing the Haram from the eastern residential area of Makkah, one can see its entire shape with the Masa'a running from south to north. Pilgrims usually visit other places of interest whilst in Makkah. Jeddah is a popular destination. Here pilgrims stop over at a restaurant on their way to the Fatima Tal Zahra Masjid. This masjid is built partially on the Red Sea and is the most visited masjid in Jeddah. It is beautifully designed and kept in an immaculate condition. The adhan for Maghrib is in the process of being completed. As mentioned before, Fard Salah is prohibited in the Hijr al-Ishmael. Mayits are placed in the Hijr and remain there for the duration of the Fard Salah. In 693 AD and in the 71st year after the Hijrah, Makkah was conquered by Al-Hajjaj ibn Yusuf. After an agreement with the Khalifa Malik, he demolished and rebuilt the Kaaba according to the Qurayshi design and separated the Hijr from it. To the left of the Kaaba is Maqam Ibrahim, known as the Station of Abraham. The area of Tawaf was getting increasingly overcrowded during Hajj and other seasons. A solution was found in the buildings on the Mataf, such as the one over the wells of Zamzam and over Maqam Ibrahim, including the pulpit, had been removed. Ibn Kathir said, Maqam Ibrahim is the stone at which Imams lead prayers. It is the stone on which Prophet Ibrahim, may peace and blessings be upon him, stood while constructing the house. When the hall went up, Prophet Ishmael, may peace and blessings be upon him, brought it to him to stand on while taking the stones from him and aligning them with his hands to raise the wall. The only persons now in the Hijr are the Imam and his aides. You will also notice as he leaves the Hijr to take up his position between Maqam Ibrahim and the Kaaba, the Iqamah commences. As explained earlier, the Mu'adhin has a bird's eye view from the windows to the left of the Kaaba. Please note that the Salah of Maghrib has been shortened for the purposes of this presentation. The Constituent Assembly of the Muslim World League discussed the issue and concluded that the removal of the buildings will ease the hardship of Tawaf. The building over Maqam Ibrahim was removed and an elaborate cover of crystal glass 20 millimeters thick and 1 meter high, mounted on a 75 centimeter copper base, was placed over it. The steel grille is 3 meters high. The space taken up by Maqam Ibrahim is less than a square meter instead of 18 square meters. People are now able to see Maqam Ibrahim, refuting the generally held belief that the tomb of Prophet Abraham was inside the building. The Imam usually stands next to Maqam Ibrahim, but during Hajj and the month of Ramadan, he stands closer to the Kaaba because the Haram is normally full to capacity during these periods. However, there are times when the Imam stands on any of the other sides of the Kaaba. You will also notice that the covering of the Kaaba is rolled up to above average head level. This is to prevent the multitudes of pilgrims from hanging onto it during Hajj. Directly above the Hijr, near to the top of the Kaaba, is the Golden Gutter. When it rains, there is usually a large crowd of pilgrims under this gutter. We leave the reasons for this to your imagination. As soon as the Fard Salah is completed, the mayyats in the Hajr are taken and placed in front of the Imam, who then leads the Janaza Salah. After the Janaza Salah, the mayyats are carried away to the left from the Kaaba.
Camels on Jabal Nur.
The cave of Hira is on Jabal Nur. The significance of the cave is that Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, received his first message in this cave at the age of 40 years old in 609 AD. One can see Masjid al-Haram from the apex of Jabal Nur. Visitors usually ascend immediately after Fajr to avoid climbing in the heat. This is the entrance to the antechamber of the cave of Hira.
Yeah.
The actual cave is on the other side of this chamber and can be seen from a different angle later.
Yeah, you come back out this way again. Anti wala diya kan? Ja, nee. Ons gaan allemaal gaan naar diya.
This is the view of the actual cave. As a young man, Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, was alienated by the way the Quraysh lived and believing in idols. In his 40th year, the angel Jibreel appeared and commanded Muhammad to read, which was the first word revealed of the Quran. It is not uncommon to meet your countrymen on Jabal Nur. Here are a group of South African pilgrims enjoying the shade and are resting before descending again. All along the descent there are various vendors and one can have a photograph taken on a camel. There are also a number of beggars along the way.
Down.
The pilgrimage sites are usually visited before the days of Hajj. Mina is about 7 kilometers from the Medina bridge exit of Masjid al-Haram to Jamaratul Aqaba. Muzdalifah is 5.5 kilometers from the Jamarats to the middle of Muzdalifah. Muzdalifah's masjid is the Al-Misha'ar Al-Haram Masjid with its dominating twin minarets. In the background is Masjidul Namira, from where the Imam leads the pilgrims in prayer on the day of Arafah. The masjid is on the boundary of Arafah on the Muzdalifah side. Isha, the Iqamah has just been completed. Please note that the Salah has been shortened for the purposes of this presentation. The southwestern corner is known as Rukun Yamani. It is sunnah to touch this corner during each circuit of Tawaf. It is, however, makruh or undesirable to kiss this corner. The apparel of the Kaaba is known as the Kiswa. King Asad Tubba of the South Yemeni tribe of Himyar was the first to place a cloth covering on the Kaaba. He chose one of the fancy brocaded silk. In addition to that, King Tubba built a gate to the Kaaba and had a key made for its door. He did this on his way through Mecca while returning from his invasion of Yathrib in 330 AD, 220 years before the Prophet's birth. The tribe of Quraysh handled the yearly ceremony of changing the kiswa until Abu Rabi' of the tribe of Makhzum made an agreement with him that he would change the covering every other year. This practice continued into the time of Islam. Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, was the first to drape the Kaaba with a striped Yemeni kiswa, and the Khalifas Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ibn Zubayr and Abdul Malik continued with the custom. Each kiswa was draped one over another until the 8th century AD. The Abbasid Khalifa al-Mahdi ordered that only one kiswa be on the Kaaba at a time. It was brought to his attention that the halls of the Kaaba might collapse under the weight of all the kiswas draped on it. Khalifa al-Ma'mun used white brocade and the Fatimid Khalifas used white, yellow, green and black during different years. However, after the time of the Abbasid Khalifa Nasr Lidinullah, black, the tribal color of the Abbasids, became the standard color of the kiswa, and this practice had lingered on until today. In subsequent times, the kiswa was furnished by different sultans of Baghdad, Egypt or Yemen, according to their respective influences over Makkah. For the clothing of the Kaaba was considered proof of sovereignty over the Hijaz. Kalu'an, the Sultan of Egypt, assumed for himself and his successors this exclusive right, and from them the sultans at Constantinople inherited it. Kalu'an appropriated the revenue of two large villages, Bisanz and Sandabair, in Lower Egypt to cover the expenses of producing the kiswa. In 1972, a new factory for the kiswa was established and was completed and inaugurated in 1975. The apparel is 14 meters high and 47 meters long. The belt on the upper third of the cloth is in 16 sections, on which Quranic verses are inscribed with gold-coated silver threads. The curtain of the door to the Kaaba is called al-Buruku and is made of the same silk material as the apparel. The total cost of one apparel made from scratch is 17 million Saudi riyals. Makkah became a trading center in about 400 AD. Makkah became the heart of the Islamic Empire, but the city's political importance declined during the mid-600s AD when Muslim conquests spread through distant lands. Makkah maintained its importance as the religious center of Islam. Makkah was ruled by a series of sharifs from 960 AD until 1924. In the past, many Muslims who came to Makkah for Hajj settled there. The city's population became a mixture of various nationalities. But since the 1930s, the government discouraged immigration to Makkah, thereby preserving jobs in the area for people of Saudi Arabia. Pilgrims during Hajj spent almost $1 billion in the city. The Muassasa is the experimental establishment for non-Arab speaking African countries. It is a government agency responsible for seeing to the needs of foreign pilgrims. Each country, especially those with large Muslim populations, have the services of a Muassasa. Here the Muassasa for South Africa is preparing the South African compound at Mina. Here a group of tour leaders, more commonly known as agents, are visiting the compound 2 days before the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. This is 1998 and the last year these types of tents are used to accommodate pilgrims during the days of Tashriq. As a result of the tragedy of 1997, when more than 100 pilgrims perished in a tent fire, the Saudi government replaced the tents with fireproof tent-like structures over a period of 2 years. The first Saudi expansion was keen on keeping the names and locations of Masjidul Haram's old gates unchanged. There are 51 gates, including the 3 main gates, which are the King Abdul Aziz Gate, Al-Umrah Gate, and As-Salam Gate. Above each gate and on either side are 2 minarets, each 92 meters high. The 7th minaret is above the Safa Gate, adjacent to a 35-meter diameter dome decorated from inside with Quranic verses. Near the 3 main gates there are 2 public drinking places that supplies pilgrims with Zamzam, thereby easing the congestion at the Zamzam well. This is the last Friday before pilgrims leave for Mina. Seen here is a part of 1 million pilgrims that attended Jumu'ah at Masjidul Haram. This fact was published in the local newspapers the following day. This throng of pilgrims is indicative of Makkah's accommodation and water requirements. There seemed to be no difference in the multitudes that attended Jumu'ah and this one. These pilgrims are leaving Masjidul Haram after completing Salatul Isha. One can only marvel with awe the throngs and throngs leaving Masjidul Haram. As usual, the 3 bridges are jam-packed and congested. Despite thousands of pilgrims leaving Masjidul Haram, thousands remain behind. The splendid and magnificent features are enhanced at night by an array of lights especially installed to highlight this house of Allah. This is the eve of the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah and everyone is preparing for the trek to Mina. This is the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. It is sunnah to move to Mina on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah. Pilgrims performing Hajj Qiran and Hajj Ifrad should proceed to Mina in Ihram. Pilgrims performing Hajj Tamattu should assume Ihram from a Hajj Miqat. Those staying in Makkah should assume Ihram from where they are staying. It is recommended that pilgrims should make supplications and recite the Talbiyah as much as possible while moving to Mina. Whilst at Mina, pilgrims should offer Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib and Isha Salah and then overnight there and not depart until sunrise on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah. Pilgrims may also miss Mina completely and proceed directly to Arafah on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah after assuming Ihram. The 8th day of Dhul Hijjah is also known as Yawmul Tarwiyah or the watering of the camels. It is reported that pilgrims in the early days of Islam prepared their camels at Mina on the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah for the journey to Arafah on the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah. These days, there are no preparations of camels and pilgrims wait around in anticipation of Yawmul Arafah. Some elect to remain in their tents pondering, while others wander around for various reasons. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, the authorities are monitoring the movements of the pilgrims to ensure a smooth and safe movement from area to area. There is also very little street trade on Yawmul Tarwiyah. Very noticeable is that everyone is in ihram garb. There is also last-minute reading and checking on rituals to be performed for Hajj. Here pilgrims prepare for Salatul Isha before retiring. At Fajr on the morning of the 9th day of Dhul Hijjah, pilgrims are more than ready for the big day. Some are checking on du'as and other rituals and discuss amongst other things previous experiences relating to Hajj. For the Muassasa, ferrying the pilgrims to Arafah is a logistical nightmare for the government agencies. All roads lead to Arafah and thousands of pilgrims are waiting to board their buses. In 1998, there were approximately 8,000 South African pilgrims that needed to be ferried to Arafah. This represents 133 trips for a single bus or 7 trips for a fleet of 20 buses. Needless to say that hundreds of buses are required to ferry all the other pilgrims. Scores of pilgrims also walk to Arafah via the specially constructed Pilgrims Highway named Pedestrian Street, and the flow of pedestrians can be seen later on in this presentation. Once a bus is full, it slowly winds and negotiates its way through the multitude of pilgrims waiting on the side of the roadway to be ferried to Arafah.
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك.
Once the bus is clear of Mina, it drives through Muzdalifah. The journey takes roughly an hour depending on the density of the traffic. It is a parallel drive with a pedestrian highway and passes Masjidul Masha'ar al-Haram.
اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد
Here one can see the river of pilgrims on the pedestrian highway just as the Arafah boundary is crossed.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك.
The difference in the logistics for Arafah to that of Mina is that everything is geared for one day only, whereas Mina is set up and geared for 4 days. Like Mina, every country will have its own compound, which will be overseen by the Muassasa. Again, behind the scenes, movements are monitored via closed-circuit television and other visual aids. During the 90s, the Saudi government planted thousands of trees on Arafah to provide some shade for the pilgrims. It takes most of the morning for pilgrims to settle in at Arafah. There is consensus among Muslim scholars that spending the day at Arafah is the most important part of Hajj.
لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة
Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, said that pilgrims must adhere to the traditions and rituals of Hajj because it came down from Prophet Ibrahim in heritage. Pilgrims must be on Arafah between noon on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah and dawn on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. Pilgrims may spend the day of Arafah within the bounds of Arafah except the bottom of the valley of Urna to the west of Arafah. Pilgrims need not worry about mistakenly stopping in the valley as the boundaries are clearly defined. Pilgrims must maintain a complete state of purity and face the Kaaba during supplications. Staying at Arafah means physical and mental presence in any part of Arafah, whether one is awake or asleep, riding, sitting, lying down or walking. It is also recommended that Dhuhr and Asr be combined and shortened according to the authentic hadith. Fasting on Arafah is also prohibited but recommended for those who are not on Arafah. The following glorifications of Allah is recommended for Arafah. There is no deity worthy of worship but Allah alone. He has no partners. To Him belongs the kingdom and all praise. In His hand is all the good and He has power over all things.
إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك
لبيك اللهم لبيك
After Maghrib, after a day of supplication, du'as and pondering, there is a mass exodus as pilgrims start departing from Arafah to Muzdalifah.
أيها المسلمون كلما أيقن العبد بكمال علم الله واطلاعه عليه وأن الله يعلم سره ونجواه لا يخفى عليه من أمره شيء كان ذلك سببا لتقواه ومراقبة أمره والابتعاد عن نهيه.
موعدا لا نخلفه نحن ولا أنت مكانا ويلكم لا تفتروا على الله كذبا فيسحتكم أمره بينهم وأسروا قالوا إن هذان لساحران يريدان أن يخرجاهما لا تخف إنك أنت المفلح الساحر حيث أتى
Traffic police is always on hand to ensure a relatively free flow of traffic from Arafah. All modes of transport are used for the trek.
قالوا لن نؤثرك على ما جاءنا من البينات والذي فطرنا فاقض ما أنت قاض إنما تقضي هذه الحياة الدنيا إنا آرهتنا عليه من السحر والله خير وأبقى إنه من يأت ربه مجرما فإن له جهنم.
Because the journey can take more than 2 hours because of congested roads, pilgrims can use this opportunity to relax. Being at Muzdalifah for part of the second half of the night is wajib. Pilgrims may stop anywhere at Muzdalifah except the valley called Muhassir between Muzdalifah and Mina. Pebbles for pelting Jamarat Aqaba are usually picked up at Muzdalifah. Combining Maghrib and Isha is strongly recommended at Muzdalifah. It is also recommended that when pilgrims leave Muzdalifah for Mina, they must pass the valley of Muhassir at a quicker pace. It is also wajib to pelt Jamarat Aqaba at Mina on Yawmul Nahr, the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah. After the pelting of Aqaba, pilgrims must shave or clip some hair in order to be partially released from the restrictions of Ihram. Only one restriction remains, which is conjugal relations. After the pelting of Aqaba on Yawmul Nahr, the pilgrims may offer an animal sacrifice. The next essential act of the Hajj is Tawaf al-Ifada, followed by Sa'i al-Ifada. After these important rituals, pilgrims take a rest. Some attend the Eid Salah in Makkah. After Dhuhr Salah on Yawmul Nahr, pilgrims head back to Mina. According to the three Imams of Islamic law, spending 2 or 3 nights at Mina is wajib, but the Hanafi school regards sleeping at Mina as sunnah. Thousands of pilgrims are still at Mina on the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, and space seems to be at a premium. Thousands of pilgrims are informally accommodated in the streets and anywhere else where there is space. It is wajib to pelt all 3 Jamarats on the days of Tashriq. The time for the throwing is between midday and sunset. Jamarats must be pelted from the smallest, Ula, then Wusta, and then Aqaba. The pelting of Jamarats can be stressful, emotional, and hostile. Here the menfolk of the Suraya group of 1995 forms a human chain around the human during pelting. As part of the redevelopment of the pilgrimage areas, an upper level was constructed over the Jamarats, thereby doubling the pelting capacity. In 1994 and in 1998, a number of pilgrims died as a result of crowd movements at the Jamarats. After the 1994 tragedy, pilgrims were no longer allowed to overnight near and around the Jamarats. The main disadvantage of pelting from the upper level is that pilgrims are in the sun all the time. Protection from the sun is vital during the days of Tashriq, and despite the intense heat, thousands of pilgrims walk around at Mina. The historical significance behind the pelting of the Jamarats is reported in a hadith transmitted by Ibn Abbas. Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, said, "When Prophet Abraham, may peace and blessings be upon him, wanted to perform the Hajj rites, Satan blocked his way near Aqaba. He threw 7 pebbles at him, and Satan sunk into the ground. Satan appeared again at Wusta, and Prophet Abraham again threw 7 pebbles at him, and again he sunk into the ground. He appeared again at Ula, and Prophet Abraham threw 7 pebbles at him, and Satan sunk into the ground." Ibn Abbas added, "You throw pebbles at Satan, and in doing so you follow the path of your great forefather." Allah says in the Holy Quran, in chapter 2 verse 198, "There is no sin on you if you seek the bounty of your Lord. Then, when you leave Arafah, remember Allah, glorifying His praises." Most commentators on the Quran agree that this verse refers that it is permissible to trade whilst on Hajj. Pelting continues throughout the days of Tashriq. The authorities have ensured that the pedestrian flow is one way on either side of the Jamarats. This arrangement, coupled with the prohibition of camping and overnighting around the Jamarats, made pelting and moving from Jamarat to Jamarat less strenuous. At night, pilgrims occupy themselves with various activities and are in a relaxed mood after the activities of the rituals. Most pilgrims are finally and completely out of the state of ihram, and there is much to talk and relate about. While some rest and sits around, others are pelting jamarats.
Allahu Akbar walillahil hamd.
After every fard salah, pilgrims takbir.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. La Allahu Akbar walillahil hamd.
As mentioned earlier, some pilgrims elect to remain at Mina for 3 days, and some leave Mina after 2 days, and all but one ritual has been completed. The last ritual is Tawaf al-Wida, also known as the farewell Tawaf. Then pilgrims look forward to their home journey. May Allah grant them a Hajj Maqbool, inshallah.
والحمد لله حمدا كثيرا وسبحان الله العظيم وبحمده الكريم بكرة وأصيلا.
This presentation is the work of Ridwan Wahid and was inspired by his first pilgrimage in 1995.
مخلصين له الدين ولو كره الكافرون. لا إله إلا الله وحده صدق وعده ونصر عبده وأعز جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. لا إله إلا الله والله أكبر. الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي